Okay, so we want to take a look at some of the tools that are going to be used in our cabinet making assembly today. So first of all, we have some specialized bits that we're going to use. This is the conformat bit right here. That is a stepped drill bit designed to counterbore and countersink the holes for our conformat screws. And I've also installed a depth collar on it. So this is an Amana 20212 depth collar, and I have attached it to the conformat drill bit at a depth that will give me the correct depth for what we need today. So that's your conformat drill bit for drilling for the screws. We have a magnetic bit holder with a number 3 posi drive bit in it. So the number 3 posi drive bit will fit into these conformat screws here and engage. So that's the number 3 posi driver in a magnetic bit holder.
How can you distinguish posi drive from Phillips head?
Okay, good question, George. So if you look at the tip of the head, I should say, of the conformat screw, you'll see the 4 main slots that we are used to looking at for, like with a Phillips head.
Hold it steady.
With a Phillips head screw. But in between those, each of those 4 larger slots are 4 smaller slots. So on the driver tip, you have a corresponding nibs that are built in between those blades of the what looks like a normal Phillips head driver, but the extra little nibs in between those blades engage into those smaller slots in the screw and give it a better connection. So you have more of the torque of driving the screw transferred to the head effectively. So it just prevents the screw, or it reduces the amount of what we call camming out, when the driver disengages from the head of the screw and then just ends up bunging up the head of your screw. So the posi drive tip is a better connection than just a straight Phillips head bit. Okay? So we have then also, I have a number 2 driver. This is actually a combination driver, which has a square drive tip on one end and a number 2 Phillips on the other hand. I've got a magnetic ring attached to it that I like to use so that it magnetizes it, and then it's designed so that it will fit into an impact driver and very easily connect to that. So so we've got the number 2 driver, we've got the number 3 Phillips driver. Looking at some of the parts, we're going to use 1/4 inch crown, 1.5 inch long staples. So the staples that we use, again, 1/4 inch crown. So the crown is the distance across the top of the U of the staple, and then the length is 1.5 inches, and these happen to be 18 gauge. So we have 18 gauge 1/4 inch crown, 1.5 inch long staple that fits into this particular staple device. You just slide it in there, and then you release that, and it puts tension on the nails. So we're going to use this Senko nailer to drive our 1.5 inch staples. Okay, looking at our hinge plates. So these hinge plates are what we're going to mount our hinges to, and we'll look at the panel later, but there's holes that are drilled pre-machined for us in the correct location so we can install this hinge plate. But the important thing to look at is that there is a front and a back to this hinge plate, and if you install it backwards, the hinge will not mount to it. Looking at the top of it right there, you can see a little arrow pointing forward, okay? And so if it's installed correctly, then we can take this hinge, and it has a little post on it right there. We just slide it over there, and it snaps into place, okay? To disengage the hinge, we just release that clip, and it releases the clip. If you try to mount this If you mount the hinge plate backwards, you'll find that the hinge will not attach to the hinge plate. So that's a key warning there, but you can easily distinguish this little arrow pointing forward. So that's the thing to know there. Okay, so those are the hinge plates. These are the hinges. We're using a toolless insertion, so it's called an Inserta, a Bloom Inserta 110 hinge plate. It also has a soft closing feature on it. We'll take a look at the hinges a little bit more. All we have to do is put that onto the door, snap this down, and it's attached to the door. Okay, another tool that I like to use are these laminate sample pieces that sometimes we need a little shim, and these things seem to work really good. So I keep a few of those close to my workbench whenever possible. I have an assembly mallet, so this is the type of mallet that will, if you pound onto a finished face, it won't damage it. It's not a dead blow mallet, it's what I would call an assembly mallet. Okay. Another tool that might be handy is these Bessie corner clamps. I have a few of these. You may or may not need them, but there's times when clamps are like a third hand. So this corner clamp, we'll look at it when we put the cabinet together, see how it can hold that corner joint together for us while we install the fasteners. And also I have a couple of 3-foot aluminum bar clamps that may come in handy, so I like to keep those close by. So that's what we're looking at for being able to assemble this cabinet. Okay?